A brand new Isolation e-racing show. Over the next 3 weeks, we are going to be looking for the ultimate e-racing drivers. That's right, we're going to put all of our competitors to the test as we look for the ultimate driver in terms of adaptability and skill. And it goes like this: the drivers won't know the circuit or the car until just a couple of hours prior to the race. Therefore, less time for testing. Throw into the mix then as well reverse grids and pit stops. So they have to prove their ability to overtake, they have to prove their ability to strategize a race and to learn new circuits in new cars. Well, tonight I can tell you, we are racing Indy cars at Silverstone. Something that certainly hasn't happened in modern motorsport history. Well, with a few final tips for the drivers, let's go on a hot lap with driver coach Enzo Mucci.
Hi everybody, welcome to Silverstone, a circuit not for the faint of heart, especially in this car. Right, straight into turn one, turning in at around about 160 mile an hour, so everything's high speed, high speed, high speed, then down into second gear for a very slow complex. This is the new part of Silverstone, new-ish, first gear even, and then just squeezing the throttle, short shift to second early, that's just to control the wheel spin as you're coming out, just to give yourself a chance. And then down the straight, this is where we joined the original Silverstone into Brooklands, looking for the 50-meter mark, braking into third gear, using all the curb, and then into another slow corner, second gear, long right, and this one, you just bury the throttle and just hope that it's going to grip before you get to the gravel trap on the outside. So that's most of the twist is done. Next, it's high speed mode, so we need to keep the speed in the car. Turning in now at 174 mile an hour, keeping it in sixth, brake and throttle at the same time, so you've got both pedals going, and then we're going to flick the car into Beckett's at this speed, and then braking it down 2 gears just to give the front a chance to get in, and again, like the other corner, bury the throttle, hoping it grips before you get to the grass, and whoever puts the power on first there wins down the straight. It's like a drag race, so you really got to be early to the throttle and just be brave. Stowe corner, where Michael Schumacher broke his legs, 180 mile an hour turning, down to fourth gear, using all the road, try not to use too much track limits. And then one more corner, chicane, brake in, this is Vale, first gear, and then into second again to control the wheel spin, which is a bit of a beast, and that is the start finish straight, and that is Silverstone.
Great to have seen a lap there from Enzo Mucci, but now I am joined by an incredible star. He's got an MBE for his services to motorsport. He's won the Le Mans 24-hour race, not once, not twice, but 5 times. It could only be Derek Bell. Derek, thank you so much for taking time out to join us. You know, you have had a wonderful career, you know, incredible success across the sports car world.
I was very fortunate. I mean, you know, the whole thing about life is getting the breaks and making the most of them. And I know that the era that I was in, that sort of 70s and 80s, the 70s was a bit dodgy. And the 80s, you know, we were racing those wonderful Porsche 962s, which was the new formula for sports cars. And then on top of that, of course, I was racing those in the World Championship for the factory team. And then I raced in America for the factory Porsche team as well. So, you know, I got the best. I was so lucky to be in that world, but so were we all. I wasn't the only driver getting super drives. There were a ton of us that were very capable and did a great job.
Well, you raced against some of the greatest names, of course, in motorsport as well. And we were talking just before we started our interview about your great friendship with Jackie Ickx and how, you know, those friendships became very, very strong, but massive rivals on track.
So he didn't become a friend. He's a very insular sort of, he keeps himself to himself, and he was a young superstar. I mean, he should have been a world champion numerous times, in my opinion, in Formula One. Just was in the wrong car at the wrong time and just didn't have the luck. And he had a few accidents as well. And so, but then we got into sports cars, and he actually asked the team that I was driving for in like 74, and I've been testing this car all year for 2 years, to go to Le Mans with a thing called the Gulf Mirage. And he said, I would like to drive with Derek at Le Mans. And I guess knowing him, he had sussed out that I was quite reasonable, I hadn't crashed. And therefore, you know, I'd driven the 917s, which was one of the greatest cars ever, and done well with it. So I'd be okay with him, or he'd be okay with me at Le Mans. And of course, we went to Le Mans and won the race. And then we won it subsequently 2 more times to make it 3 after that. So he and I became very close very quickly, but we never knew each other that well. And people like yourself would say, yeah, but I mean, what did you two used to talk about? We never talked. Because when he was in the car, I was resting, and when he was our eye was resting.
Looking at that era, drivers seem to be far more adaptable in some ways than drivers today, because you would step out of one category and straight into another the following week.
All the drivers, Jimmy Clark would race at Goodwood at the International Trophy on Easter Monday. And Jimmy would drive in the Formula 1 race or else the Formula 2 race. And then on top of that, he'd drive in the touring car race in a Lotus Cortina, and then very probably drive a very big Lotus 30 sports car in the big sports car. They would do the three types of racing. So all race, Sterling Moss was the most versatile racing driver ever. And so they all had to be.
I know that you look after Tristan Nunez, and we were talking to Tristan just last week on the show. He's been competing with us in our championship. And when I said to him, where did your love of motorsport come from? Because your family are tennis players. He said, well, it's this man I know called Derek Bell, who just happened to be around at my father's house, and I was so inspired.
Yeah, I speak to him quite a lot. I mean, I've been to his house, and his dad, of course, coached my son Sebastian, who could have been a really very good tennis player, but not really the top. But I think he might have been, because he's perfect for it. But so he saw his father, we saw him 3 or 4 times a week, and we got to know him very well. And then one day, one said to me, "Oh, Tristan, he's going to drive go-karts." And I thought, where the heck did that come from? Because they were brilliant tennis players, he and his brother. I mean, so good. And he went off and did go-karting, and he did very well. I didn't ever see him drive karts in races, but I saw him testing. And then he went into like a 2-liter sports car formula, and he won. I mean, he got pole position every race, and he won everything. And I remember thinking to myself, how the heck does he do all that?
Well, we're certainly finally getting to test what's going on in the world as we're starting to get back out of lockdown and see races start to take place. This weekend, virtual 24 hours of Le Mans.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching. It was great. The great thing about it, I saw Jensen out there driving just now, and he looks very relaxed, concentrating. And it's great for them to keep that concentration going. I mean, 15, 20 years ago, this hideous pandemic had come around, we wouldn't have been able to do anything like that. I mean, sort of stuff we had to play along with. We'd just spent the time at home at the weekend. They go on these magnificent simulators, and they are getting better. I never liked them for years, because to me, there's nothing like the real thing, as they say. But I must admit, driving one particular simulator one day out in, I believe not Hong Kong, was so amazing. And I went, oh, right. I could come and do an evening of this every week.
The series we're doing, this one is the Ultimate E-Racing Driver. So this particular series, we've got 3 weeks where they find out, Monday afternoon, the drivers will find out what car they're in and what circuit they're on. And then so they have limited time to test. There'll be reverse grids. So they've got to practice their overtaking and get that tested. They've got to do pit stops. So we're just challenging them in different ways.
Yeah.
And then the last championship was Formula 3. So we had a Formula 3 championship. It's been wonderful, and it's lovely to see them all competing. We've had Rubens Barrichello along with his son Dudu racing.
All right.
Lovely. It's been great. Thank you, Derek. And I'll hopefully see you again at Le Mans when we all get there in September.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. I'm the old man limping around on crutches. Okay. Bye. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Well, an absolute honour to have caught up with Derek Bell there, and a real pleasure to bring him to your screens. Right now, it's time to head trackside with our race commentators, Chris McCarthy and Jack Canane.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the Ultimate eDriver series, coming to you live on BT Sport. My name is Chris McCarthy. I'm going to be joined on commentary this evening by Jack Canane. Before we go into the racing, let's just talk you through how this series works. We've got 42 drivers entered this evening. We're going to be having qualifying, then 3 heats and a feature race. The championship is going to run over 3 weeks, and the unique thing about this championship and why we have given it the title of Ultimate eDriver Series is over 3 weeks we're going to be driving 3 different cars around 3 different tracks. So drivers are going to have to adapt to new challenges every single week. We're going to be driving an Indy car this series, so a nice challenging start around the Silverstone circuit. So we're going to be starting on home ground as well. They're going to have qualifying to kick off, which will be just 2 laps Then the drivers will be split into 3 different heats. So the driver who qualifies on pole position along with 4th and 7th will go into heat number 1. 2nd, 5th and 8th will go into heat number 2. 3rd, 6th and 9th will go into heat number 3. In just a 4-lap race, the top 8 are going to qualify through to the feature race. That will give us 24 drivers in the feature race. However, there will be one final chance to qualify through via the consolation race, which will be just 3 laps. So drivers who finish 9th and lower will be put into that, when 5 will go through. As for points, the top 5 in the heats score points, and the top 10 in the feature race score points there. More info and commentary coming for you just after this. We're going to take a very quick breather though, and we're going to go back to Gemma Scott, who talked to the young Australian driver, Bart Horston.
So Bart, you're one of our younger drivers in the championship that we've had across April, competing across May as well. And you're competing in a Formula 3 championship with us on e-racing, which is what you're meant to be doing in real life in 2020.
Yeah, it's been really good prep, because obviously there's not a huge amount of difference between the cars we've been racing online, although that's about to change, and what I'll be racing in real life, especially with the new aero package for this year in British F3. The car's really fast, so yeah, it's been good to have a similar kind of benchmark to test myself online with on the sim.
One thing I'm intrigued to talk to you about, you're an Australian living in the UK, and from my understanding, you and your family moved to the UK specifically for your racing career. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't like to feel, sometimes I feel a bit guilty about it, but no, it's been really good, and I'm fortunate to have a really supportive family group behind me. And yeah, basically for my motor racing career, we decided that since we were already in a very isolated part of the earth, funnily enough in Western Australia, even if I was to compete in Australia, I would probably have to fly over to the eastern states anyway, which is still quite a big change of lifestyle. So we already knew a lot of people in the UK, and Britain historically is known for being the place you want to go if you're an international racing driver trying to make a name for yourself. So we just decided that it was the best thing to do opportunity-wise, and I could get the most experience out of it. And I've really enjoyed just everything about racing in the UK. So many great tracks and cars and teams and series, and it's been an unreal experience.
As an Australian, do you look up to Daniel Ricciardo, or is it somebody else completely that you look up to?
Yes, especially when I was younger. I look up to a lot of drivers from history who clearly really capable drivers, and Daniel's just a really good driver, and there's a connection there considering he comes from the same hometown as me. But yeah, so it's pretty unlikely that an F1 driver would come out of Perth, but it did in the case of Daniel. And you know, he's a really great, I've been a massive supporter of his, and I've always thought how he goes about racing and how serious and how intense he is on the racetrack is a really great example to follow.
Well, but maybe we can see another Perth Formula One driver in the making with you. You've been back in the car this week. First time since all of this craziness started. What was it like for you getting back into the car?
Amazing. It was almost nauseating at first, a bit strange. It was just a little bit weird having so much more force than in the simulator, on the brakes and on the accelerator, and having to warm up the tires a bit more and focus on stuff like that, and being in a helmet. It was different, but it only took probably, I'd say, 2 sessions. Then all of a sudden it was just kind of back to normal. You know, this is testing. I've got to get my testing. I've got to try and learn as much as we can, improve the car. And it was actually a really solid day's testing. I really enjoyed it. The weather was really good as well. Wasn't even that windy for Snetterton. So yeah, it was really great. And yeah, like I said, it's surprising how quickly, I think a lot of the drivers will find the same thing, is especially if you've been keeping yourself sharp in some way on the sim and doing physical training, we are preparing to get back into the car and basically get on with the job straight away. So I feel like it doesn't take many laps for people who have been doing all the necessary training to get back at a high level.
And the goal is Formula One?
Yeah, I think definitely the goal. However realistic it is hard to say, but I think you need to be ambitious in this sport. So yeah, Formula One.
Well, I wish you the very best of luck with it. Look forward to seeing you joining us again for our June series, which is slightly different, looking for the ultimate e-racing driver.
Yeah.
So we'll be throwing some new challenges your way. We won't be in the Formula 3 car, so it'll be an interesting test on the sim, but certainly also wishing you the best of luck for getting back out into the real world of racing.
Thanks, Gemma.
Well, from a racing legend to a potentially future one, first of all, great to hear from Derek Bell. Before myself and Jack had a little bit of a talk before qualifying. Derek Bell, a 5-time Le Mans winner, and of course the first ever 24-hour Le Mans virtual took place over the weekend. Was an absolute privilege to be a part of that. So we could have some tired drivers out there in this one. And Bart Horston, the young Australian, great to hear from him. He's going to be racing in the British F3 championship this year. I'm going to bring in my co-commentator Jack and we've just had qualifying, Jack, 2 laps, and why don't you bring us up to speed with what's happened? We are just gridding up for heat number 1, so this will include the drivers who qualified 1st, 4th, 7th and so on.
Yeah, great to be back once again alongside Chris. And yeah, so we have a rolling, not a rolling start for this one, a standing start in the Indy Cars here. Heat race number 1, we're going to have Chris Lulham on pole position. You will know it was in 7th place. We have got Rubens Barrichello once again. The drivers are now gridding up. So it's Chris Lulham, Mike Gepps, Josh Mayle and Jonathan Hoggard. Gordy Much in 5th place. Then Ben Barnico. Rubens is in 7th place. Alfred Nilsson, Cian Donaldson and Freddie Spindlow are your top 10. And it is key to note the top 8 will go straight through to the feature race. The bottom 2 will go to the consolation race, which will be after these 3 heat races. So really exciting to have some IndyCar action on BT Sport.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. So as Jack said, we are mainly concentrating on who goes through. However, there is going to be points scored for this as well. So the top 5 will also score points. We will have 5 points go to the driver who finishes first, and then we will work down in ones. So 4 for second, 3 for third, 2 for fourth, and 1 point going to 5th place. Right, the lights are about to come on. We are around the Silverstone GP circuit. We are in Indy Cars, 4 laps for heat number 1, and off we go. So Lulham there didn't get the best of start, so Epps is immediately going to take the lead as we go through turn number 1. Lulham in 2nd place, Malin in 3rd, or was 3rd. Gordy Much looks like he has just come up to 3rd place, fighting with Malin at the moment. Hoggard in 4th. The key really is to just get through nice and safely. You only have 4 laps, but you've got to get through that first lap safely to give yourself a chance to go through to the feature race. Top 8 will go through. There will be points scored, but in the feature race, big points up for grabs for the top 10, with 25 going into winner. That's going to be coming up later on, though. Ben Barnico is there in 6th place. All of this grid will feature familiar names to motorsport fans. It's all professional drivers up and down the scales of motorsport. So we've got drivers from XF1 drivers all the way down to F4 and karting drivers. Ben Barnico, a McLaren factory GT driver there, fighting with Jonathan Hoggard. Jack.
Yeah, as they come down this beautiful section right here, side by side between Hoggard and Barnico. They were side by side the whole way through Cops Corner and in through Maggots and Beckett. Spraying sideways in the background. Barnico, he somehow keeps it in a straight line and he manages to keep it away. But Mike Epps has spun from the lead. Mike Epps is falling down the order down to the back of the field now. And that's how quick these cars are. Very, very squirrely around these types of track, the European circuit. Here we are with Mike Epps. Did he spin by himself or did he get a helping hand from Chris Lulham in the back? I wonder. Did he? Yeah, lost it by himself on the exit right there. Round he went. That drops him right down to the back of the field. And now, straight from the lead to the very back. And now he should be going to the consolation race if he can't make up any more position. But there's even more spinners, even more contact. Cian Donaldson and Freddie Spindlow have both falling down the order now. So that's put him back up to 9th place. So it's not the worst in the world for Mike Epps. He goes back up to 7 as he's immediately. It's gone from one extreme to the other. He's back inside that field, and he's even more another spinner, and that looks like possibly Freddie Spindlow again losing it in the background right there. It's Mott who has lost it in the background. So it's total chaos on lap number 2, but it's Chris Lulham from Gordy Much now in 2nd place, but Lulham was the pace setter in qualifying, so he's now clear up front to open out a gap.
Yeah, Chris Lullam raced in F4 or races in it, either or. But Chris Lullam, he is leading. We got Malin in second place there, Hoggard in third, Mitchell in fourth, Chris Tarhan in fourth place, the American. Then it's Epps Barnicoat and Rubens Barrichello, who was racing alongside Fernando Alonso at the weekend. He sits in eighth place now, as Much will drop to the back of the field, or has taken the lead rather. So Gordy Much up at the front there. We've got Barrichello in ninth, so just outside of the qualifying positions. Spinlow in 10th, but a bit of chaos on that opening lap. And what's going on here with Gordy Much, Jack?
Looks like a slowdown penalty on the exits of Beckett. They do pick them up here in iRacing. If you take too much of the track limits, you will be forced to slow down to give up the advantage. That's dropped him down from the lead, down to 5th place now. So it's all key just to get to the feature race at this point. But Gordy Much, something is definitely going on. It looks more than a slowdown to me, or he's picked up a lot of slowdown penalties to get him back up to pace right now. So it looks like it was a big slowdown, but he keeps having to do it. So I wonder, is there an issue on the car, or can he not get rid of the slowdown? That's a big one for Gordy Much, who was just leading this race. The genetic GT5 driver is now in trouble. He's in 5th place. He's dropping down into the clutches of Mike Epps, who was also leading this race earlier on. Chris Tarhan, Ben Barnicoat and Rubens Barrichello now just outside that transfer spot in 8th place, or in 9th place at the moment. But Gordy Much looks like he had to struggle with a massive slowdown penalty right there. It took him half a lap to get rid of it.
Jack, and just for the viewers who weren't with us over the last 5 weeks for the Isolation e-Racing series, can you just explain to us how a slowdown penalty works and how you pick them up on iRacing?
Well, if you take too much of the track limits, if you cut a corner, then the in-game steering system here on iRacing will force you to slow down to give up a time advantage. So it could be anything from 2 to 3 seconds. You've got to lift off the throttle and wait for the countdown timer to come down, and that will lose you places, and it will definitely hurt you in the chase of a race lead, for example. So you really can't afford them at corners, especially like Maggots and Beckett's, and running wide at Cops is another key area where you can pick up these slowdown penalties. As well, you've got the off-track system as well, so the drivers have a limit on the amount of times that they can run out wide or make contact. Anytime you run off the road, you pick up what's called a 1X, or a 1 incident. For losing control of the car, you pick up 2 incident points for that. And for making contact with another car, you pick up 4 instant points. And normally there is a 17 to 20 instant limit. So if you reach those, you get an immediate disqualification or a drive-through penalty. So the guys have really got to be precise with their driving. They can't afford to run wide. We're on board now. It's Sandy Mitchell who's having a great one, Chris.
It's almost like a race director in IndyCar having control of the driver's pedals, isn't it? As Sandy Mitchell here in 4th place. We go on board with him, IndyCar around Silverstone. An interesting combination that, isn't it? Sandy Mitchell making his way now down towards this left-hander. We got Hoggard just ahead of us on track. He's running in 3rd place. Gordy Much behind in 5th. Mike Epps there in 6th. Then Tarhan and Ben Barnicoat rounding out the top 8 positions. In the points for this heat are Lullam, Malin, Hoggard, Mitchell and Gordy Much. Sandy Mitchell will score 2 points from qualifying here in 4th place. This is the first of 3 rounds, so we're going to be running over the next 2 weeks at the very same time, Monday at 6 p.m. on BT Sport. So 3 rounds to decide, and as we said, we're going to be running in 3 different cars around 3 different tracks. This is the first car driver combination or car track combination, sorry, that we have chosen. But Chris Lullam here, only a couple more corners to go now. Through Stowe we go, and it's been a very good start. We've got 2 more heats where we're going to be seeing the rest of the field, but the first 14 drivers we are seeing compete, and the top 8 are going to go through, and this first place is going to give Chris Lullam pole position for that feature race. So great stuff from Lullam. He comes around the last corner and he takes the race win. 5 points and pole position for the feature race with it. Behind, Malin 2nd, Hoggard 3rd, Mitchell 4th, Much finishing in the 5th and final qualifying spot, and the last of the points finishing spots, Jack.
Exactly, so Ben Barnicoat across the line for 8th. Rubens Barrichello not too far off the back, but he'll be going to the consolation race as well. So it's a shame for him, but we will see him again, and hopefully we'll see more of him racing against his son, Eduardo Barrichello, who is also with us, Chris.
Good stuff. Well, we are going to bring in Gemma Scott because as much as we have some very tired drivers out there who may have been competing in the 24-hour of Le Mans Virtual, we have a very tired commentator here as well, Gemma. So do you want to take over for the next 2 heats and the feature race?
Chris, I'm not surprised you're tired. You've worked an incredible weekend on the 24 hours, and what a bit of history has been made. In 2020 in general, when you look at the explosion of e-racing and how talking to the drivers, as I have been over the last 8 weeks, in fact, talking to them about how they all are having such a blast and want to see this grow because it's given them so much opportunity to put themselves out to the test. And this just goes to show tonight, I think you'll agree, that, seeing them race in these Indy cars, a lot of these drivers have never touched an Indy car. Rubens, yes, he has. Connor Daly, who, of course, I speak to later on in the programme tonight, he'll be coming up with us later. He's used to it. But it goes to show the handling on these is so different and so relative to real life. And, seeing Indy cars on a UK circuit, what an absolute pleasure. And I think that's going to be exciting throughout this next 3 weeks of racing.
And great to hear from Derek Bell earlier. I understand it was fairly hard to actually cut that interview down so we could fit it in and have time to do 3 heats and a feature race as well. We can tell he's definitely been in isolation because it sounded like Derek Bell was just happy to be speaking to someone else.
Do you know what? It was a wonderful chat. I spent about 35 minutes on the phone to him in the middle of the 24-hour race as well, which he was also enjoying separately. And, we talked about a variety of different things, but particularly about how, back in his day, drivers would have to get out on one weekend of a Formula One car into a touring car, into a GT car, and how, that skill is something that current drivers don't necessarily have to have. But I certainly think that there are a lot of drivers that want that experience to be able to go from one feed through to from one championship through to another, to be able to experience the endurance racing against the sprint racing.
Good stuff. Thank you, Gemma. Well, while I take a very long blink, I'm going to hand over to Jack for the race start.
And away we go straight away for heat race number 2. Ramez Azam on pole position. Bortoletti gets a better start on the inside line as Azam loses places now to head towards turn 1. And through they go. So Bortoletti leaves. Jack Crawford slots up ahead of Azam. He's had a turn 1 with contact in the background. Looks like it was Will Stevens maybe involved in that one. When he manages to come through, he kept it in the straight line. Jake Dalton that was, who got a little bit of contact, manages to keep it in a straight line. A little bit more contact, made his front wings flying around in the background there as they come through. It's Raoul Hyman in the middle of that one. Serenetti. Enzo Mucci's right in there as well in 10th place. We look at Raoul Hyman. That's followed by Tristan Nunez, Serenetti and Mucci, but it's Bortoletti who leads from Jack Crawford's having a look up the inside as they come through there. Ramez Azam following. Will Stevens is 4th, then it's Matty Hingley and Hugo de Sadalier. So all these guys regulars in the Isolation E-Racing Series last month, but there's big front wing damage on that front wing of, that'll be Raoul Hyman, Tristan Nunez following behind him, Enzo Mucci now under pressure from Serenetti, but already Orwela and Raghunathan are already out of this race. There was turn 1 chaos there as they came through turn number 1. But Bortoletti, it looks like, it seems to be that second place seems to have a better start than everybody else.
Yeah, definitely, as we see Enzo Mucci here, one of the men behind this series, having a good old scrap there for 9th place, in that 9th place at the moment, and we pick him up now, the race driver coach, so teaches people how to drive, but he's down in 9th place. Put your foot down, Enzo. What's going on there? As down towards Stowe we go, and Raoul Hyman fighting for one of the last qualifying places, and he's currently on the edge of going into the drop zone. He is there in 8th place, so everyone who is going to finish below Raoul Hyman will be put into that consolation race. Oh dear, there we go. Hyman helped round into a spin. I think that may have... Oh dear, that was an Enzo Mucci.
The driver coach.
Oh no! Enzo Mucci, what are you doing? Well, I'm not going to forgive him for that one. Enzo Mucci taking out Raoul Hyman. They're going to be in the consolation race now. Mirko Bortolotti, he is leading from Jack Crawford. So an IMSA driver fighting against Jack Crawford, who is now a Red Bull Junior driver. And then we have Ramez Azam just behind that as well, Jack.
Crawford trying around the outside of Brooklands as he managed to keep his nose in just a little about keeps it on the inside for left field, but not quite able to slot up the inside. So Crawford looks like he's got the pace over Bortolotti at the moment. Azam is falling behind a little bit now. Will Stevens not too far off the back. Here comes Crawford again as they come towards Copse Corner. He's going to have to go on the outside line. Can he manage to get the slipstream around the outside? It's Brave around the outside of Copse Corner. Is he going to be able to keep his foot in? Yes, he does. Side by side towards Magnus and Beckett's now. Crawford still trying to get ahead of Bortolotti. Bortolotti as they come through, still neck and neck through Marcus and Beckers, and Crawford's got ahead. What's a move from Jack Crawford round the outside of Copse Corner, got it stopped into Marcus and Beckers, but now it's a 4-car train with Crawford, Bortolotti, Azam and Will Stevens now in this one, and the slipstream effect is massive in Indy cars. Here comes Azam now on Bortolotti on the inside as they come towards Stowe. Up the inside, Azam takes second away, but that move from Jack Crawford was absolutely brilliant, so brave.
Good stuff by Jack Crawford as Ramez Azam, oh dear, almost doing an Enzo. Oh, he's done an Enzo Mucci. There we go. How is he watching the stream at the same time as he now takes a spin as well? So Ramez Azam round, and unfortunately, he took a driver with him as well, as we can see Mirko Bortolotti there going into the race lead now. Will Stevens in second. So Crawford, of course, was the other driver who got taken round with him, but he is there now in 5th place. So still in a qualifying spot as Matty Hingley goes up into second ahead of FIA World Endurance Championship racer Will Stevens, an XF1 driver as well. Hugo de Sadelier just in the background there in 4th. Crawford still remains in the qualifying places. So the top 8 are going to go through to the feature race where we score big points. Only 5 points up for grabs for the winner here, and that is Mirko Bortolotti, who is in that lead so far. Top 5 taking points. It's going to be a longer race than what we were used to in the Isolation E-Racing Series, and we're going to have a pit stop added in. So 10 laps coming up for you later in these Indy cars around Silverstone. But we are now into the second half of this 4-lapper, which gives us 8 more drivers to go through to the feature race. Top 4 have escaped. Behind that, Crawford, Garcia, Nunes seem close together. I think it might be just a little bit closer for 8th, though. I can see Azam is in 8th, and behind him we have the likes of Dalton and Serenetti, Jack.
Exactly, so we're coming on to the last lap very shortly. Azam seems to be just about holding on to 8th place. Yes, he's got a gap behind to Jake Dalton, who is behind them. So it's now we're looking at Tristan Nunes, who's chasing after Victor Garcia in 6th place, and Jack Crawford recovering from his spin in the last corner. So it's still Mirko Bortolotti who leads. It's Matty Hingley in 2nd place, but Will Stevens piling on the pressure now as they head towards turn 1. You can see Hugo de Sadelier now on board with Will Stevens as they come through turn number 1. You can see the speed these guys carry into turn 1 and into turn 2 and 3 now as they fight their way through. Very smooth driving at the moment from Will Stevens. A little bit wide from Matty Hingley. You can see he got a bag of understeers that came through there. Now Will Stevens firmly in the slipstream. You can see how much the slipstream effect is going to help him now down towards Brooklands. I don't know if he's going to be quite close. He shows himself in the mirrors again, and Hingley goes defensive as they come through towards Brooklands corner and towards Luffield now. He's not quite close enough, but he's getting nice and close to the back of Matty Hingley at the moment, trying to get the run out of Luffield towards Copse Corner. Then as he got a run, he gets a little snap in the rear end. Still not quite close. He's got to be thinking now about Stowe Corner for a move. He's getting a lovely slipstream towards Copse Corner, not quite close enough now. Backs off in the braking zone now towards Maggots and Beckett's and Chapel. There's not many opportunities left. This is for an extra place on the grid. He's going to go to the outside of Maggots and Beckett's. Not close enough though as they come through. Backs off nice early, but now Hugo de Sadelier is now right on his tail as well. This is going to be very close to the line.
Yeah, good stuff. This lap number 4 of 4. Only a few corners remain now. Hugo de Sadelier. It's whether you want to take the risk and score 1 more point, or whether you just sit in 4th and take the qualifying place through to the feature race. And I think Hugo de Sadelier has decided for the latter as they make their way down towards Club Corner for the final time. Had a little think about it, but out front, the driver who's going to start 2nd on the grid, it's going to be a front row spot for the feature race, and 5 points with it. Mirko Bortolotti takes the win in heat number 2. Hingley finishes 2nd, then it's Stevens de Sadelier, and Jack Crawford manages to get through to 5th place. A bit of an eventful one, but nevertheless, he qualifies through. Nunes is going to finish in 6th. Then we have Garcia, and Azam goes through. He takes the last qualifying space through to the feature race. So Crawford takes 1 point with him through as well for finishing 5th. So points going to the top 5. Top 8 will see you in the feature race later. Everyone else will see you in the consolation race. Before that consolation race, though, we do have 1 more heat to get us 8 drivers through to the feature race. But before we go into that 3rd heat, Gemma Scott, we are going to go back to her as she caught up with Ben Barnico.
To find the ultimate e-racing driver, testing you to your limits, different circuits, different cars. how different is it on the sim to jump, let's say, from an F3 car to a V8?
I'm actually doing a test at Silverstone where my LMP car and my McLaren GT are going to be there. So, on the same day, I'm going to be jumping between the two. So in real life, that's the skill set, that I'm good at. But on a sim, it's going to be, I'm sure it's going to be a bit different again, because you have to learn how, in the sim, you just miss that bum feeling. So it is, it really is with your hand and your feet and your eyes. So it is going to be a real challenge to everyone, and getting the most from it. It will really show, I think, who the drivers who can adapt and are good at sim racing. It is a different thing to real life. A lot of things are the same, but like I say, missing that bum feeling, some people really struggle without it.
Looking at this from a racing driver's point of view, professional racing driver as you are, with a stack of experience behind you, all of a sudden, we are throwing you guys, professional drivers, against sim racers. And do you feel, as a driver, a little bit kind of bummed out a little bit that these guys are coming through and could potentially take your seat in the future?
I mean, I see it two ways. Obviously, it's good for us because it puts a bit of pressure on us to make sure we do our best. Taking a couple of cars, I know, for example, Oliver Behrman and Joe Turney, it's incredible for them to be able to promote themselves against us and show their skill set. I'm all about promoting and talent, and I think it's good for me to keep my name out there while we're quiet and stuff like that. So
I'm intrigued to know how all of your experience that you've got in different genres has put you ahead of the game for this particular championship and finding the ultimate driver.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking. I hope it will help me out. It's been, like I said, those boys in those M3 cars are unbelievable. So I'm hoping I'll have a bit of an advantage, but we'll see tomorrow. We'll see on Monday night.
So final heat race of the evening in action at the moment, and we've got Browning leading the way. Luke Browning, the young British F4 driver, with a comfortable lead over Dudu Barrichello in second place. Phil Dennis is in third. The top 8 go through to the feature race. We've already had 16 drivers go through. This will give us 24 on the grid for that feature race, and one more will go through to the consolation race, which will take place after this. Luke Browning leading, as we said. Denez is now second, the American driver. Dudu Barrichello third. We heard from Bart Horston earlier when he caught up with Gemma. He is in fourth place. Japel in fifth. Christodoulou in sixth. Alcaraz in seventh. And Aiden Neat, I think that is young Aiden Neat, in eighth place, Jack.
Exactly, so interesting to note now, this interesting battle for second place. These two guys, Phil Dennis and Dudu Barrichello. Oh, no, gets a touch in the rear from Bart Horston, and Dudu Barrichello now causes a chain reaction after he gets punted in the rear by Bart Horston. And now that puts Dupel through to fourth place, Alcaraz, Christodoulou. And that will be Neat going through the seventh. So Ali Al Khalifa now goes through to that eighth place. So unfortunate, that tiny touch in the rear. What I was about to say was Phil Dennis and Dudu Barrichello both on the road to Indy programs. This is the aim for them, is IndyCar. It was interesting to see they were having fantastic scrap there between the two of them. That's such a shame. So Barrichello will be seeing in the consolation race alongside his dad, and that's going to be an interesting one to watch. But Horston is now out, it looks like. So it's Luke Browning, Phil Dennis, Dupel, Alcaraz, and now we look now at Alcaraz is actually chasing. Horston pops back in now, so Dupel is now in fourth place. He's missing half his front wing, so he's going to be vulnerable down the straight for sure.
Yeah, just tell us about the effects, Jack, that could have in an IndyCar to lose. I mean, half your front wing, it's never really good, is it, no matter what race you're in? But what kind of effect for the viewers who are potentially not too familiar with motorsport, what kind of effect will that have?
Oh, it'll lose you a lot of downforce in the corners. The front wing gives you a lots of grip in the corners. Of course, it allows the front end to stay planted to the road. So when you don't have a front wing, it of course allows it gives you a lot less downforce, and it means that it handles essentially like a boat when you don't have it. So it's going to really hurt Dupel at the moment as they come through the last couple of corners. Now he's lost 2 positions to Alcaraz and Christodoulou, who goes through the 5th place. Now Neat and Ali Al Khalifa are now in that just behind him now. So Dupel, he's got a decent gap back to Slavinik, so he could still be safe. But we'll wait and see as Neat moves to the outside. You can kind of see Slavinik and Harry Cottrell in the background as well. So that contact, and around as we say that, Neat now spins it in the first couple of corners, and we've seen a lot of spins here today. These cars are really, really tail happy in these. Of course, you might see them in oval spec, but they are in the road course spec at the moment, but they are very, very hard to keep in a straight line, as they now would look at Dupel and Ali Al Khalifa, and Khalifa spins as well in Brooklands. They come through and they may just avoid it there. Slavinik goes through, and Harry Cottrell slots ahead now into 7th place. So you can see now how hard these cars are to keep in a straight line. We look at Alcaraz and Christodoulou heading towards Copse Corner now. Christodoulou up the inside, he takes that position away, but Alcaraz will have the, of course, the run on the exit, but he manages to back off there. So plenty of chaos in this one, and we're just seeing how hard these Indy cars are to drive.
Yeah, I have to say, if you're wondering, why am I seeing all these professional drivers spinning around, making contact with each other? Well, of course, some of them have only been doing esports for a few weeks. Most of them, really, in fact, have only been racing in esports for just a few weeks' time since isolation began, or did start just a few weeks ago, or a couple of months ago. That's when a lot of these drivers really got properly into esports. They also only found out the car they were going to be driving today a couple of days ago, and they found out the track at 3 p.m. today, so they have not had a lot of practice in the car and track combination. They would have only had about 2 or 3 hours at most, so it's been a tough challenge for them, and Indy cars are not too easy to drive, and Silverstone is of course a fairly challenging circuit as well, and when you marry those things together, then it's no surprise that we are seeing 1 or 2 incidents, and that's why we have the title of the Ultimate eDriver Series, because this really is the ultimate challenge for these times. That one sounded good there, Jack, didn't it? As on board we are with Alex Alcaraz, who sits behind Christodoulou.
Yeah, just a nice feature as well to see the aero screen on the IndyCar as well. Of course, the head protection device that was introduced this year into IndyCar as well. Of course, the F1 has the halo, but IndyCar has the windscreen, essentially the aero screen, which is on these cars. Doesn't look overly bad at all. I think it makes it look like a fighter jet, actually, as we ride on board now with Alex Alcaraz. He's chasing after Adam Christodoulou, who's just pulling away a little bit. We are on the final lap as well. Luke Browning has been completely clear from no issues whatsoever. He's driven a great race. There is Luke Browning now out in front. Phil Dennis chasing after him, of course. Phil Dennis, Indy Pro 2000 driver. Of course, the Indy Pro 2000 car was just recently added into iRacing as well. So we've got the full road to Indy inside iRacing now as well. The US Formula 2000 and the Indy Pro 2000, and of course the Indy car. So Luke Browning is going to win this one ahead of Phil Dennis, and Bart Horson with a great drive as well to 3rd.
Good stuff. So Browning it is who takes the win. He will start 3rd place in that feature race, and he will take 5 points as well. The top 5 are going to score points. So Dennis, Horst and Christodoulou and Harry Cottrell, the young karting driver, they're all going to score a point. Cottrell will score a point, but they will all score points. And the other 3 drivers along with them that will go through to the feature race are Al Khalifa, Slavinek and Alcaraz. So they are your 8 that go through. The ones that go through to consolation are Neat Dupel, Barrichello, Jones, Lawson and Fatima. That consolation is races are just about to take place. Only 1 driver is going to go through, so it's going to be a fairly interesting one to keep an eye on. However, we're now going to go back to Gemma, who this time caught up with IndyCar driver Connor Daly.
So Connor, talk to me about your career in motorsport, because obviously coming through karting, through the traditional route, GP3, GP2, I'm imagining the goal at one point would have been Formula 1, but really you've made your career in Indy. Has that always been, as somebody who's from Indianapolis, the main sort of goal for you?
Honestly, I was very dedicated to the whole European route. Once I started winning championships over here, you really only have one chance to go to Europe and try to become a Formula 1 driver. And I made that choice. So, I don't regret it. It was a great learning experience. Got to win races against, guys that are in Formula 1 now, got to compete for championships, which is something not a lot of Americans can say they've done over the last 2 decades, which is really cool. But yeah, obviously I'm an Indiana boy. You're just down the street from the track. So IndyCar has always, had a special place in my heart and my family as well. Obviously, my dad was a driver as well. And my mom worked at the racetrack. So everyone loves IndyCar here.
What is it that makes IndyCar so special?
That's a great question. I think just the history of the Indy 500, obviously at the base, but the series itself is just great racing. I think I've always grown up with, watching Formula 1 and was the racing, great? Yes. But I also watched Michael Schumacher win 7 world championships. And I was like, well, this guy always wins. And I was a kid at the time. And I was like, oh man, I don't know what, I don't know who else actually wins in this game. But IndyCar for me was always, 2 to 3 wide, side by side, a lot of oval racing mixed in with some road course racing, and I could go and see it as well. So there was something just about IndyCar that's been so special. And waking up every race morning for the Indy 500 it's an experience that it doesn't matter if you're a Formula One fan or a NASCAR fan or an IndyCar fan or whatever, or a fan of basketball or football.
Yeah.
Like if you wake up and go to that race and see the environment and just take it all in, it's something that people, no matter where you're from, no matter what sport you're involved in, have truly loved it.
I'm really intrigued to ask you about your teams and the arrangement you've got for this year, because you're doing the Indy 500 and the road and street stuff with Ed Carpenter Racing, and then you're doing your oval stuff with Carling. It's unusual. Normally you'd stick with one team for everything, surely.
It is very unusual, but my life has also been very unusual. I have had quite a strange racing career. And literally, as I was doing this interview about 20 seconds ago, I realized that I do not have my Carlin stuff on, and I have my ECR stuff on. So I was like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do, what I'm not supposed to do, because my next race is with ECR, but we just finished with Carlin. So it's kind of funny, but honestly, it's a great opportunity. Both teams are great teams. My partnership with the U.S. Air Force and ECR is fantastic, and I can't wait to start racing with those guys. But I've already raced with Carlin, and I know them, and we started the season really strong together. So I think that's super exciting. I love to be able to bring those guys some success, because they're still a new team in IndyCar, and they deserve some success. They deserve to start being collecting these trophies in IndyCar, and I would love to be the guy who gets them their first podium, their first win. That would be really cool. And I think we certainly started the season, strong enough to be able to be contenders at each race that we do.
So what about the Indy cars on European circuits? How do you think they're going to fare on a European circuit?
Well, I know a lot of us would love to be going to some European circuits, that's for sure. So I think it would be great. I think there's plenty of tracks that we could have a very successful race on.
Well, I certainly look forward to the race this week. We are looking for the ultimate e-racing driver over the next 3 weeks. Do you think you are the ultimate e-racing driver?
Absolutely not. I know that I am not. I know that I am essentially the worst. I proved it to myself again just yesterday, which is hilarious because I was streaming it on the internet, and all the followers on Twitch were like, well, hey, you know what? You are essentially 5th in the IndyCar Championship right now. And I was like, you know what? I'll take that for real life. I'm still a real life guy, but I am sitting next to a simulator that will be here probably forever. And I love esports now too. So we'll take it.
It's certainly been great fun during lockdown, keeping the world of motorsport united, keeping us all racing, keeping the fans engaged as well. It's been fun, but it's definitely time to get back out there, isn't it?
Absolutely. But you know what? I hope that we can mix the worlds quite a lot more and keep the esport hype going, because I'm a big video game guy. So I think it'll be cool to see.
It certainly will. Connor, thank you so much for taking time out to chat to us. It's been really nice to chat to you.
No problem. Anytime.
Fantastic to hear from Conor Daly. He's unfortunately not on the grid tonight, but it's fantastic to hear from him as always. We're on the final lap of the consolation race. Winner goes through. Jake Dalton leads. Dudu Barrichello is second, and Ed Jones is third. So Jake Dalton has got 2 Indy guys behind him. How hard is this for Jake Dalton? Rubens Barrichello started on pole, but he's all the way down in 5th place now. This is going to go right down to the wire. Dudu Barrichello, of course, Indy Pro 2000 driver. Ed Jones is a DTM driver, but a former IndyCar driver as well. So he's got some huge pressure on him as Jake Dalton through Cop score for the last time. Winner goes through. Winner takes it all and takes the final slot on the grid. Jake Dalton's done enough so far to hang off against Alvaro Barrichello and Ed Jones. But he's got one more straight, the hanger straight with the slipstream. He's got no slipstream to help him out here as they come through Maggots and Beckett for the final time. Dudu Barrichello behind him, Ed Jones behind him as well. Jake Dalton goes defensive, weaving down the straight. He might just have enough here as they come towards Stowe for the final time. Jake Dalton, he started second. Dudu has a little look on the inside as they come towards the last corner. He's right on his tail as they come to the last few corners. Is he going to be able to take this away from him as they come through the last corner? He's looking on the outside, looking for the switchback. Dalton defends it nicely. Coming to the last corner then. Jake Dalton has he done for Duda Barrichello's up the inside of the last corner. It's side by side. I think Dalton just got it by literally a couple of thousandths there. Unbelievable. Jake Dalton's just about done it against Eduardo Barrichello. Brilliant finish. Well done, Jake Dalton.
What a finish that was by a hair. I think Jake Dalton took that one ahead of Dudu Barrichello, but there we go. For the pictures we're seeing, but Jake Dalton just ahead of Dudu Barrichello, and that has to be. Oh, it's going to be hard to top that finish, Jack, isn't it? But we have got the feature race coming up. Ed Jones third, and the rest, unfortunately, not qualifying through. So only Jake Dalton goes through to the feature race, and that'll give us 25 on the grid for that feature race. But Jack, that's going to be a hard one to top that.
Exactly, Jake Dalton's going to be over the moon with that one. He just beats Dudu Barrichello, Indy Pro 2000, Ed Jones, former IndyCar driver. Jake did a fantastic job to hang him off there, but literally got it by, I think, barely. It could have been maybe 1,000th of a second across the line. Kean Donaldson were just waiting to get across the line, but Jake Dalton will take that spot on the grid, the final slot on the grid. And of course, we now have a 10-lap feature race to bring you. And it's going to be really interesting to see this one. Of course, the drivers, of course, have to take a pit stop in this one as well with the setup that they've been given. So they've got to be thinking about strategy and all that to come as well. And we've got a really interesting one with Chris Lullum and Bortolotti on the front row.
Will it just be tyres then, Jack, that they're going to take there, or is it going to be fuel as well?
It'd be interesting to see because 10 laps seems quite short. I wonder would someone even bother taking tyres? That's the strategy element they've got to think about now. Did they take tyres as well as fuel, or did they save their tyres and carry through to the end? It's going to be an interesting one to watch, but it's Chris Lullum and Bortolotti on the front row, and we've got some interesting names that are in the middle of the grid that really, of course, had a terrible heat race that are now going to have to try and climb their way up to the field. For instance, Jack Crawford right in the middle of the field, Ramaz Azam down in 23rd place, Ed Jones down the back route, and we've got a couple of others as there, Dudu Barrichello in there as well. So it looks like actually the top 5 from that heat race managed to go through. That was, according to our information, was only the winner, but Jake Dalton goes through and Rubens Barrichello on the very back of the grid. So you'll still be happy they still made it. And we've got the race start coming up right now with the lights on in front of them. Chris Lullum away from the line. Bortolotti it's a terrible getaway for Bortolotti in the background. Josh Malin looks to the outside line as they head towards turn number 1. 3 abreast as they come through. Luke Browning on the outside. Josh Malin side by side for second place with Bortolotti as they come through to the first couple of corners right now. And Chris Lullum leads. Josh Malin second. Luke Browning round the outside of Bortolotti through turn number 1. Phil Dennis trying to follow through as well. Matty Hingley getting in the middle there as well as they come through turn number 4 for the first time. Looks all clean so far from these guys up front, but it's Lullum, Malin, Browning, Bortolotti, Dennis, Hingley as they fight hard for these couple of positions up the front right now. Lullum's got a gap already as we look at Phil Dennis under pressure now from, that'll be Phil Dennis, but Matty Hingley now is having to fend off Phil Dennis actually to come through to the Luffield corner. And around the outside now goes Phil Dennis. Can he get it around the outside? He's not quite enough. Bortolotti slows up on the exit as they come through. Dennis just about slots ahead, but Chris Lullum, brilliant getaway. He's already got a gap ahead of Josh Malin.
Good stuff by Lullum. He leads the way then. Malin sat there in second. We are looking at Mirko Bortolotti. He is in 5th place so far. So as Jack said at the start, we are expecting 1 pit stop throughout this race. That is what they have to take. So it's going to be a little bit different to what we saw throughout the Isolation E-Racing Series to our viewers through that. This is the Ultimate eDriver Series. It's round number 1. We're in Indy Cars around Silverstone. That is Adam Christodoulou, who has had a bit of a problem through Maggots and Beckett's. As for points, the top 10 will score points with 25 going to the winner, 18 to second, 15 to third, 12 to fourth, 10 to fifth, and then we work down in twos with 1 point to 10th place. 1 or 2 drivers dashing into pit lane to maybe clear that stop straight away. Ramaz Azam, Ed Jones was one of those as well. So interesting stuff with drivers in straight away here, Jack. So they want to just clear it, I imagine, as soon as they can to then get out on a fresh track.
Exactly. So Ramaz Azam, Ed Jones, Jake Dalton in the pit list. They're trying to go for the early stop. Maybe just going to splash and dash and go. Chris Lullum is now out in the lead. Josh Malin still second. Luke Browning is third. Phil Dennis. Then it's Bortolotti, Matty Hingley, Jonathan Hoggard, Bart Horston, Will Stevens, and Mike Epps are your top 10. Dudu Barrichello's had a fantastic start, up to 13th from the back of the grid. So as I was saying, the top 5 actually made it through to the feature from that consolation race. So Rubens Barrichello is still lapping around in 17th. So he's in there at the moment. We look at Dudu Barrichello, followed by Jack Crawford, and that's a problem for Victor Garcia, and he's now missing half his front wings. That's not gone well for Victor Garcia, former Indy Lights driver, and he's now being chased out by Freddie Spindlow, who is just behind him right now. But Dudu Barrichello, Jack Crawford, Rubens Barrichello all have had great getaways from the back of the grid. They kept themselves out of trouble so far. There is Rubens now. He's chasing after Alex Alcaraz in 16th, Harry Cottrell in 15th, then Jack Crawford and Dudu Barrichello are together on track at the moment. So Dudu doing a great job in 13th place, and Jake Dalton, who managed to beat him in that consolation race, opted for the early stops. We got to watch out for those guys who opted for the early stop early on to start making their way through the field when the other pit stops start to come.
Yeah, they're going to have a free track ahead of them.
Oh
dear.
No!
That's Lullum, who has gone round. So there's our race leader. He's had some contact, and unfortunately, Lullum is going to drop all the way down to 10th place. So let's have a look at the replay and see exactly what happened here. So this is Lullum leading with a gap. So I'm expecting him to make a little bit of a half spin here and create some traffic. Oh no, he was tagged. So second place there, tagging him into a spin. They both went round, and thankfully the rest were able to avoid them. So Josh Malin going in far too deep on the brakes there into the final couple of corners, and he has taken out our race leader, Chris Lullum, and Lullum appears to have come off worse as well. So double trouble really for Lullum, unfortunately. But that has given the race lead to Luke Brown, and he's inherited the lead out of all of that. Phil Dennis, who comes into this on form, he sits in second place. Bortolotti is in third place. Then we have Hoggard in fourth, Hingley in fifth, Horston in sixth, Epps is in seventh, Lullum in eighth, and then we have the likes of Mitchell and Dudu Barrichello just behind that. So all the drivers do have to make a pit stop. There was a tally of drivers coming into the pits on that second lap as well. I imagine the likes of Lullum, after that problem, we may see him in this time because he might want to clear the traffic ahead of him, and he may even have bits of damage he will want to get repaired on that car as well. But our top 4, Jack, are all together out front. They have the likes of Hingley, who we're looking at now in chase. But you'd have to say at this stage of the race, before these guys come into the pits, any one of these 4 could go and take the win.
Exactly, and of course all that contact would have actually helped the guys who stopped early. So there was a message from Enzo into the drivers chat about the pit stops. They're of course told to not change tyres. Chris Lullum up the inside, and Mike Epps get to stop. So they've been told to make sure they tell their pit engineer to not change the tyres. It's a fuel stop only for these guys. The tyres will go 10 laps easily, so it's just a quick splash and dash for the early guys. They've got to try and save their fuel to the end. Meanwhile, these guys are going to try and push on to go as far as they can into the race and get into the pit lane near to the end, possibly halfway through this race. Now we look at Bart Horston, who's under pressure from Matty Hingley. Chris Lullum trying to make his way back through after the contact with Josh Malin, and you can see now that we go through, and we got Luke Browning still leading from Phil Dennis. We look at Mike Epps and a couple of other guys there. Luke Browning still leading this race, doing a fantastic job out in the lead. Phil Dennis chasing him down in second place. Mirko Bortolotti is third. Jonathan Hoggart is fourth. So the top 3 very close together, and Phil Dennis firmly in the slipstream range right now. So interesting to watch this battle. Of course, Phil Dennis also races over in the US, the Indy Pro 2000 class as well. Luke Browning, British Formula 4. So 2 very different forms of junior motorsport going at it in an IndyCar top-level motorsport.
Phil Dennis may be comfortable sitting behind Browning here. He could save a little bit more fuel in the tow, I reckon, and could make his pit stop a lot quicker. So I'd say Dennis may just be happy sitting where he is for the time being. Bortolotti likewise, and Hoggard as well. In the background, Horston is 5th. The pole sitter Lullum is in 6th place, Hingley in 7th. Then it's Mitchell, Dudu Barrichello and Tristan Nunez. We have got to be wary of those early stoppers who came in on the opening lap, and there were 1 or 2 who came in on the second lap as well. I'd be expecting all of these guys to come in now. It would be half race distance, and a lot of them should be due in this time and then go back out. Dennis Dover, he looks like he's about to take the race lead to the outside here of Browning, who got a little bit squirrely coming out that left-hander as Dennis now trying to take advantage. We've got someone off on the inside. That's one of our back markers. And again, Browning struggling a little bit with the tyres and the power of these Indy cars out of the corners. Dennis seems a little bit more comfortable in second place. He's going to look to the outside as they come through Cops Corner. Browning running a little bit wide, just about able to hold on to the race lead, and Bortolotti has the best seat in the house there in third, with Hoggard now starting to be dropped by these three despite the battling going on as they come down the hanger straight. And Jack, I'd say this time we should see them all in.
Yeah, I think so. It was interesting to note that the early stoppers, Ramaz Azam and Ed Jones, managed to jump ahead of Mike Epps, who, remember, was in 5th place. So these guys are coming. So Azam is leading that early stopper train. We look at Luke Browning into the pits. Dennis follows and Bortolotti does not. Bortolotti stays out. So now you'll see Dennis right on his tail as they come in. And you can see Silverstone, it's a really long, slow pit entry as we enter the pit lane here. And you'll see the guys will stop for not too long. There's just enough fuel to get them to the end. So Bortolotti leads. Everybody else has come in. And Sandy Mitchell has stayed out as well. So the guys we need to watch are Ramaz Azam and Ed Jones, who are going to be arriving very, very shortly as they come towards the pits right now. So Browning stops. We look at Azam, and there is Ed Jones following him. So Ramaz Azam coming into the last corner. He's going to try and get him slot himself in front of a number of guys here. These guys stopped at the end of lap number 1. So I think that Browning and Dennis should be okay. It's going to be interesting to see where Azam and those guys do come out. So Browning and Dennis are out. Hoggard are out. Lulham is back out. Azam is going to come out ahead of Lulham. He comes out just behind Jonathan Hoggard, and he gets ahead into 5th place. So exactly where Mike Epps was. Slots into 5th and right behind the leaders here. So Dennis and Browning. So Azam is essentially in 3rd place now. So the early stop has worked out for him.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, as they said, they had a free track. Everyone else was battling, but here we go. We got Dennis here fighting away with Azam as they come down and into the long left-hander is Dennis there to the inside, or to the outside, sorry. That is Azam on his inside, and Dennis just seems to have the run now coming out onto what was the old start-finish straight, as we can see Luke Browning, he is there in 3rd, Dennis in 4th. So Dennis looking to the outside now. These are the 2 leaders who have come into the pit stone to get Bortolotti and Mitchell haven't. So this fighting is not going to do them any good, because Bortolotti, he would have had a clean lap with a fresh track ahead of him, no one ahead of him to disrupt his lap. So Bortolotti, we have to see where he comes out. This is key. These two really would have just been better off following each other around, but impossible to tell racing drivers to do that. We've got a spinner in the background, sadly. That is Ed Jones. He's had a little bit of problems. So Ed Jones, the did race in IndyCar, he is now going to get going again outside of the top 10. The top 10 score points, and Ed Jones, actually, that problem he's had, that incident he had, looks pretty terminal. Right, this was first place. Where is the 2 drivers who have come in a lap later going to come out? They are coming towards the pit exit, and Bortolotti may just get into the race lead. It's going to be very close now, and Bortolotti is going to inherit 1 place. Oh, well, no, he doesn't. Dennis goes late on the brakes, and Bortolotti does indeed pick up a place by going that extra lap later. So Bortolotti into 2nd. He's going to be going now to try and catch Browning. There isn't going to be the element of cold tyres because they were told not to change tyres, so the tyres are still going to be as they were. Bortolotti behind Luke Browning, and Bortolotti is in a good position here to try and challenge for the race victory. Likewise, Azam, an early stopper, in 4th place, Hoggard in 5th, and Lulham right there in 6th after being tagged a little bit earlier.
Exactly, so that this is the top 6 battling for the race lead. This is exactly what we wanted to see. Chris Lulham has done well to get himself back into the top 6 here after the spin and contact with Josh Mill, but Luke Browning still leads. We'll have 3 laps to go across the line. Bortolotti behind him. Dennis, Azam, the early stop has really paid off. He started 13th on the grid and up to 4th as a result of the strategy. Chris Lulham started on pole, don't forget. He's down in 6th place now. We look at Bortolotti in the slipstream of Luke Browning as they come towards, and Azam pulling off the circuit. Azam pulling off as they came through Magnussen Magnussen Beckett. That looks like a terminal issue for Ramazan. He's pulled off and is not going to finish this race. Just seen him pulling off into the grass in the background there. Such a shame for Ramazan, who was fighting for the top 3. But now he is out of this race. He's coming back into the pits. And I don't know what happened to him. We may have to find that off him later on if we manage to get him for an interview later on. But Ramazan out of the race. So the battle now is Browning, Bortolotti, Dennis, and Jonathan Hogarth, as well as Chris Lulham. But Bortolotti looks like he's got the quicker car behind Luke Browning. But Luke has done an amazing job to hold on so far.
Yeah, we've seen Luke Browning defending a couple of times already in this race, so he's showed that he is able to defend no problem, but he's going to have to defend from a couple more drivers this time as they come down the hangar straight. We can see Browning leading. Behind that is Bortolotti. Denez there in 3rd place, and then we have Hogarth in 4th. Lulham right there in 5th place. A great recovery drive so far from Chris Lulham in 5th as now they head down towards Copse Corner. We can see Browning still leading. A little battle developing here for 3rd place though. Denez slightly on the back foot. You wouldn't say he's actually attacking the top 2. More wary of Jonathan Hogarth in 4th place, and Chris Lulham is getting closer and closer with every single corner. He sits there in 5th, and as we get into the final couple of laps, the battle is going to start developing between these guys. You can see Luke Browning weaving, trying to break the toe of Bortolotti. Bortolotti trying to stay in that slipstream, but Luke Browning making it incredibly difficult for him. Bortolotti looking to the inside there, trying to fill those wind mirrors of Luke Browning as now they head down towards Club Corner. We can see Bortolotti trying to get up the inside or just trying to fade a move on Browning. Not close enough to do it, but almost a dress rehearsal there from Bortolotti as the top 5. Liner Stern, as they come through turn number 1. 2 laps remaining, Jack.
This is going to be fantastic. Hogarth made the move on Dennis for 3rd, so Hogarth's on a charge now. Jonathan Hogarth now starting to put the pressure on Bortolotti, so Dennis may have been caught napping down towards Stoke Corner. On board with Jonathan Hogarth now as he gets on the power early, and you'll see now Luke Browning will weave to defend his position, breaking the toe. Proper IndyCar driving down here, weaving down the straight. Bortolotti trying his best to stay in the toe here into Brooklands. Late on the brakes from Hogarth, looks to the outside line, trying to show himself in the mirrors. Phil Dennis is right there in his mirrors as well. Chris Lulham is also right in there. Bart Horson has got a bit of a gap back to him. So now we're going to have 1 lap to go across the line next time. Luke Browning still leading. Bortolotti trying his best to try and get past this man up ahead of him. Jonathan Hogarth as well, right in the slipstream. Dennis is trying to follow in the back as well. But now you can see, look how wide they're going through Copse Corner. Again, Browning weaving at every opportunity to break the toe as they come through Maggots, Beckett and Chapel for the 2nd to last time. This is going to come right down to the wire. Remember the finish between Dudu Barrichello and the other guys early. Now look at the run from Bortolotti. Browning had a bad one. Here he comes for the race lead to the outside line as they come towards Stowe Corner. I think he should have it as they come towards Stowe. He's on the outside line. Browning is going to try his best to keep it on the brakes up the inside, side by side. Browning up the inside. He manages to hold it sideways. They make contact. Still in a straight line somehow. Bends the front wing. Dennis now trying to get up the inside. Still neck and neck. Bortolotti with damage now. Browning on the inside line. Bortolotti round the outside, but Browning has he managed to hold on. Hogarth up the inside onto the final lap. White flag is in the air. What's the finish? This is going to be Browning leads. Dennis 2nd. Hogarth 3rd. Bortolotti 4th. And Chris Lulham right in the mix now. This is an absolutely stunning race.
Browning just about leading. Bortolotti is going to drop back now. He's got that Brent front wing, as Jack said, so he is out of the running for the lead here. Oh, there we go. Dive for 2nd place. Dennis trying to Hogarth trying to dive down the inside of Dennis now as they come onto the hangar straight. We can see Dennis now on the outside, so Hogarth gets up into 2nd. Dennis is on the outside, and then behind that we've got Chris Lulham, who's now trying to dive down the inside to take 3rd place there. Not quite able to get through and past Phil Dennis. All of this is allowing Luke Browning to escape. He's now got this one in the bag, and Bortolotti has got to be careful to not get caught from Sandy Mitchell, so he's going to have to drive carefully with that front wing damage as through Copse Corner they come. Dennis still there in 3rd, still with a good chance to take 2nd place. Don't forget the points that they scored in the heat races makes a little bit of a difference, so the points that they had in those heat races will help with the points they're going to score in this. This is the main points. 25. Oh dear, mistake there in the background. We've got someone off. Dennis with a spin, unfortunately, and he is off, Jack.
What a shame for Phil Dennis running in second place with Luke Browning. He's held on so far, but Hoggaard's not too far away. Browning cannot afford himself into the pit lane. What's going on here? Browning darts to the pit lane. Has he had an issue? Has he got a drive-through penalty on the final lap of the race? Is he going to cross the line? But Jonathan Hoggaard is going to win the race on the last lap after disaster earlier on. Chris Lullum is second, and we have to wait and see where Browning's going to finish. I don't know, did he have a penalty? I think it was a drive-through penalty, but Jonathan Hoggaard on the last lap wins the race. Chris Lullum is second, and I think Bart Horston, Browning actually managed to cross the line in third place in the pit lane. That was Michael Schumacher-esque. It happened here as well.
Yeah, it's a short run to the through the pit lane here. You cut out essentially 2 corners with the run in the pits. But Hoggaard then, in dramatic circumstances, takes round 1 victory. Only 3 rounds. And with it, he will take the lead in the championship as well. Hoggaard with 28 points to his name. So we'll go through the top 10, and the point scorers: Hoggaard, Lullum, Browning, Horston, Bortolotti despite damage, Mitchell, Barrichello, Dennis, Hingley and Nunes. What a fantastic way to start the Ultimate eDriver Series. And the points are like so. Hoggaard leads with 28. Lullum goes to second with his second place with 23. Browning takes 20 despite that drive-through on the last lap. So they are the top 3 in terms of points. There are some fairly large gaps to some of the rest of the drivers. I believe Bortolotti will be 4th. Then it will be Horston behind that in 5th. That is your top 5 in the championship, and that is confirmation of your result. Hoggaard then, he is winner of round number 1. Then we have Lullum, Horston, Bortolotti, Mitchell, Barrichello, Dennis, Hingley, Nunes and Cottrell. We do have 2 more weeks to go. Don't forget, well, we will have 2 more track and car combinations. But there is a lot of things we got to find out after those last 2 laps, Gemma. So I'm going to hand over to you to get some reaction from the drivers.
Thank you very much, Chris and Jack. Wow, what a race that was. Incredible action, and not a moment for us to pause and take a breath. I've got Luke Browning standing by to talk to me. Luke, you were leading that race right up to the finish. What happened?
It was a bit of a nightmare for me, to be fair. The contact prior gave me 2 incident points where the guy drove into the back of me, and I had to go in for a drive-through, otherwise I would have been DQ. So a little bit gutting. Not really my fault, but hey, it's all good fun, and it's a bit of a shame.
Unfortunately, that is racing. You're absolutely right, and race directors are standing by and hovering over esports as well as the real deal, and drive-through penalties. But at the last moment, that was it felt cruel, but yeah, like you say, it is what it is. How did you find the IndyCar?
That I actually had to buy it today. That was my first time hopping into it about an hour ago. To be fair, I was really surprised about how my pace was. We were well in for a fight of winning that, which we were up to the last corner pretty much. So I'll take that as a win in my book. And I was literally 1 incident point over. So if that hadn't have happened, I would have been absolutely fine. So it's pretty gutting, but it is what it is. And congrats to the leader.
Thank you very much, Luke. Great to chat you, and hopefully we'll see better results for you next time on paper. Cheers. But certainly in mind. Take that one.
Thank you.
Jonathan Hoggaard, our race winner. Jonathan, it was almost a second place, but luck was on your side tonight.
Yeah, really good result. Really happy about that. I think I was struggling a little bit in practice, about half a second off, but then managed to keep with the lead group and then come away with the win.
Learning to get into a car like this at the last minute, the circuit is one that, as a British driver, I'm sure very, very well, but getting into the IndyCar at the last knockings isn't easy, is it?
No, definitely not. It's I haven't really driven this car before at all. I've done a little bit of oval stuff with it, but nothing on the road courses. So it's a lot different with a lot more downforce, push to pass as well, making sure you're efficient with that, not using it too much, and maybe using it for attack or defense. But I just had enough at the very end of the race to hold them off.
Well, you certainly did a fantastic job. That puts you way up the top for this particular series. Next up, who knows where we're going to go and what car you'll be in. But well done tonight, Jonathan. Fantastic result.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to just invite to join me now Will Stevens, former Formula One driver, but a driver that hasn't actually headed across the pond to race in Indy in real life. Will, how are you doing?
I'm very good. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Are you recovered from the weekend?
It was quite a long one, and frustrating at the same time. I think it was it's actually very good fun doing 24 hours, so it was good, but difficult to come back to iRacing in a short space of time.
Yeah, you must be absolutely exhausted having barely slept all weekend. And then obviously we throw the extra challenge at you of saying, well, here's a circuit you know, but a car that in real life you don't.
Yeah, it's actually, I really like the IndyCar on iRacing, so I was quite happy when I saw that, so at least I knew the track and the car. But yeah, my heat race was quite good, but there was a bit of confusion about fuel in the last race, so we tried to pit early, which a lot of people did, and then realised we can't actually fill up the tank enough to get to the end of the race, so we had to pit to.
Oh. I'm not hearing you there. Are you still there, Will? I'm not hearing anybody.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. I've got you. Thank you. Sorry, Will. You dropped out, disappeared from my my audio for a moment. But you were saying about the fuel there and not knowing this. You know, for the strategy, it makes it difficult.
Yeah, because basically they set the maximum fuel tank to be much smaller, so everyone tried to pit early to get out of traffic, but we couldn't put enough fuel in to actually get to the end of the race. So a lot of people had to pit twice for the ones who pitted.
So it really is the ultimate test of strategy, overtaking, and learning a new car.
Exactly. So next time, at least we've learned from our mistakes. But I was on a Discord with Adam and Chris, though, so we both did pit on the same lap and made the same mistakes. Good fun.
Absolutely, good fun, and great to see you having fun. In fact, Adam is standing by. Do you want to come in and join us, Adam? You were having a bit of banter with Will there on Discord during the race, I hear.
Yeah, we had a great race. So me and Will we both end up in my Discord, and basically, if we're not in the same races, we end up spotting each other. And so I was jumping to the cars in front and letting him know how many push-to-passes they'd got left. But also in the main final, when we both make it into it, then of course it's a little bit tougher. But that was a brilliant race. Even though I had a spin and I messed up the fuel stop, I thought I was being smart by pitting on lap 2 and refueling at the start until I almost ran out at the end, so I had to pit again.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and it's all part of finding our ultimate e-racing driver, Adam. You know, you've got to be good on strategy as well as skill behind the wheel. How do you find this IndyCar? Because actually, at the opening few heats of this particular evening's racing, everybody was seeming to look a little bit loose at the back end of the car. There was a lot of people spinning. How hard is it to drive this particular model on the sim?
Well, I don't know whether it's something to do with that it's set up for the ovals mainly. I don't know enough about the setups, but I suppose it's got so much power compared to the F3 cars that we're normally driving in this championship that you can't just stamp on the power and get away with it, and so it's a little looser. And I believe there's a few little bar changes we can make during the race as well, but I'm not smart enough to figure out which direction I need to go with that. But definitely a new challenge, and with only an hour's testing before, and obviously with the new layout of only finding out the track and the car on the day of the race, of course, it's good because it means that the guys with loads of time don't have a whole 2 days of figuring out their way around the circuit. So it's a bit more, it's a bit trickier. But yeah, I suppose the top guys like Jonathan, Chris and Bart have dominated because they're the best on this.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it boils down to how much time you've got to be actually on the sim testing, and sometimes it boils down to natural experience in the car as well. Like you say, one thing I'm intrigued to know, and hopefully you can answer this for me, is what an Indy car is like at Silverstone, because we never see Indy cars racing within Europe.
It's bloody awful. No, it's like on the slow stuff. It really struggled on the slow stuff. I had to turn my force feedback down just because. Whilst going around some of the tighter corners, or even in a straight line, I don't know whether it's because of the amount of caster that it's running, but my steering wheel would start shaking in my hands, and so it's the lowest I've ever run it, just so that I didn't bounce out my simulator, basically. But it's like, for me, I haven't driven anything this quick around here, and I've never played any F1 game, or haven't played many F1 games, so I felt like I was on overdrive out there.
Well, you certainly put on a good show for us across the course of this evening, and hopefully we'll see you back next week for more of the challenge. Who knows where we'll be going?
And what car? Yeah, looking forward to it.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight, Adam. Well
That's
done.
great. Thank you for having me. Cheers.
Catch you soon. Take care. And standing by as well, we've got Bart Horston. Bart, how was that for you?
Exciting, I guess. I don't know. I think I finished in a pretty high position. I don't really know what happened, to be honest.
You've come in
kept it on the
fourth.
track.
Yeah, you've come in fourth. You've kept it on the track and certainly, put on a good show. But your first time in an Indy car.
Yeah, well, I bought it today, and it's not easy because it's quite a difficult car, and then you've got to set up all your force feedback, and I didn't even know there was a push to pass until about, just before the qualifying session. So I was trying to work out why I was so far down in practice, but that was why. It's just thanks to Enzo in a lot of ways, because it was a really new kind of challenge, and really different to what we had before in the isolation F3. There was just so much to get your head around in such a short space of time. Also with the pit stops and everything as well.
And for you, obviously you're looking through, using this, when we spoke previously in the week, talking about how this helps you in real life, helps you to challenge yourself, to push yourself, jumping into different cars, and with very little knowledge of where you're going and what you're going to be doing. How important is that for you to develop your own racecraft on the real circuit?
Well, although it's probably not the most realistic situation, there's still, I think when you've got such a large grid of high caliber drivers, they all push each other to a high level. So even though it seems like it could be a mess, I think because everyone wants to compete at that level, and we get the best out of each other, and you end up with a really high quality race, even though the practice wasn't that much in terms.
Oh, I'm not hearing Bart there. Not sure if I've lost the connection to him. Oh, I seem to have lost the... Oh, he's back with me. Sorry, Bart. It's okay. You dropped out for just a moment there, but you're back with us. Sorry, carry on.
No, I was just saying that I think it definitely can be very helpful to real life, because there's a lot of times where the track conditions are changing, or you do have to jump in a car you don't know too well, and track time is limited in real life. So I think it is quite useful in terms of a test in that way.
Yeah, it certainly is useful. Thank you very much to Bart. I think we've got a slightly difficult internet connection with him there, but thank you very much for joining us, Bart. And a pleasure to hear from these drivers who, we talked to during the week and throughout the course of the last series and the course of this series as well. We will be continuing to talk to many, many different stars, and how, this series has helped them to develop some of their racecraft. Although, the simulation may not be exactly the same as to what they're expecting in real life, it allows them that opportunity to develop a racecraft in a car that they wouldn't be used to racing in, but also to look at the idea of strategy, the look of the setup, and without necessarily having their teams alongside them, their engineers, their team managers there to craft them through it. They are doing this alone, and they're doing this in these incredible simulators, as we've shown you previously, that have full telemetry, that have these incredible hydraulic brake systems, and the steering wheel that is as technical as a Formula One wheel, which many of our drivers, please remember, aren't used to having so many controls onto that wheel. And tonight was a pure test, I can tell you now, as you have witnessed, of pure skill, fun and entertainment, and absolute wheel-to-wheel racing in our Indy cars. For the very first time, perhaps in many, 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 many years, I think Indy cars raced on Silverstone back in the 70s, but they haven't done since. And many of our IndyCar drivers would love to be part of an IndyCar race across the European circuits, if ever it was possible. But tonight, of course, the 28 points lead goes to Jonathan Hoggard, who finished in first position. Chris Lullum coming up in second place, and Bart Horston, who we spoke to just earlier on, in third place with 18 points. Following on from him, it's Bortolotti, Mitchell, Dinez, Hingley, Barrichello, Browning and Mallin. And that is the way we start the series. 2 more weeks ahead of us, ladies and gentlemen. Who knows where we're going next? We certainly don't. The car is yet to be chosen. The circuit is also to be chosen. And having enjoyed tonight's racing as much as I have, I hope you too have a huge smile on your face and are ready and chomping at the bit to join us once again next Monday. We will, of course, be live on BT Sport for our UK viewers at 6 p.m. And then for all of our non-UK viewers, you can watch on YouTube on a slight delay. But do join us once again next time for more fantastic racing. Excuse my dog, the wonders of working from home. I'll see you again next week. Take care.